We are Gold Ivy.
Our mission is to empower you to own and unleash your truth.
Stories of resiliency are gold, and ivy grows in hard places.
Those hard places are what creates space for light to shine through.
You decide what works for your daily life and how to transform our lessons into your gold.
This is Ivy Unleashed,
a Gold Ivy production. Today we are joined by an author, podcast host, and someone known as the shame-busting psychologist, Dr. Shawn Horn.
Dr. Horn has spent nearly 30 years specializing in ADHD, polyvagal theory, and shame resilience. Her mission is deeply personal and incredibly powerful. She helps people transform from the person they were programmed to be into the person they were designed to be.
I am so excited for this conversation because we're diving into the shame-bound identity, that version of ourselves we built just to feel safe, and how to finally distinguish it from our actual personality. I love how Dr. Shawn Horn really talked us through the difference between guilt and shame and how it affects our self-esteem and our relationships.
And I'm still blown away by how Dr. Shawn explained the science behind what screen time actually does to our brain. Is social media really hurting you because of comparison? Or is it psychologically affecting your nervous system?
So interesting. Thank you, Dr. Shawn Horn, for this beautiful episode, and thank you, audience, for tuning in. You'll be so happy you did. Before we dive in, let's hear a word from our incredible sponsors. Hey, everyone. If you're like me, January through May means cold and flu season. But this year, I'm ready. Besides the All Things Elderberry gummies my kids ask for every morning, I want to talk about something that is a non-negotiable in my fridge, the Everyday Elderberry Elixir from All Things Elderberry. They call it an elixir, not a syrup, and here's why. It's made with organic, farm-fresh Missouri elderberries, never dried. That gives it a light, uniquely juicy, and palatable consistency. It's not thick or overly sweet. And the difference it makes for me is huge. For me, a tablespoon anytime I feel that first little tickle in my throat or before a big event where I absolutely refuse to be sick. It either completely kicks symptoms to the curb or lessens them so fast. Even my oldest, Cora, is asking for it. I will never not have it. It's my daily defense. And who needs that defense more right now than our bride-to-be, Brooke?
Ooh, yes. Wedding season is basically a marathon. Between the bridal showers, the bachelorette trip to Florida, and all the main events, I don't have time to be run down. The thought of getting sick before my bachelorette trip, no thank you. I'm taking my elderberry elixir with me every morning, whether I'm at home or on the road. It's my little insurance policy, so I can fully enjoy this once-in-a-lifetime season without worry. It's literally for the mom who holds everything together and the bride who is trying to hold her wedding together.
That's right. Whether you're a busy parent, a traveler, or a bride prepping for the big day, you deserve this defense. Stop letting illness slow you down. Head over to allthingselderberry.com right now.
And for 15% off your very first order, use our special code GOLDIVY. That's GOLDIVY. Get the Everyday Elderberry Elixir. It's the defense you deserve.
Before we get back to today's conversation, I want to talk about something that hits most of us as we enter the premenopausal and menopausal years. That sudden, frustrating shift in how our bodies feel. We often talk about hot flashes, but we don't talk enough about the menopause middle. The stubborn bloating, the brain fog, and the fact that our digestion just seems to stall.
This isn't just in your head, it's in your microbiome. Trust me, I have worked for years to continually care for my gut health. As we age, our estrogen and progesterone levels drop, and we actually lose the diversity of the good bacteria in our gut. This dysbiosis leads to an increase in inflammatory bacteria, which is why we suddenly struggle with constipation, mood swings, and even sleep disturbances. That's why I want to introduce you to Relievance.
Relievance isn't just another fiber supplement. It was developed by Dr. Robert A. Gans, a nationally recognized board-certified gastroenterologist with over 30 years of clinical experience. Dr. Gans saw the limitations of standard fiber products and created this proprietary 8-fiber formula.
What makes Relievance different is the science of balance. It combines 8 different fibers, each selected for their specific viscosity and solubility. This allows the formula to dissolve gently and support your natural gut rhythm without the harsh gas or bloating often caused by single fiber supplements.
By increasing your fiber intake with a blended formula like Relievance, you're doing more than just staying regular. You're feeding the beneficial bacteria that help regulate your hormones, clear that menopause brain fog, and stabilize your energy levels. It's a tool to help fight the physiological effects of aging and reclaim your daily comfort.
It is third-party tested, gluten-free, and contains 0 artificial additives or fillers. It's just pure, clinically balanced support for a sensitive stomach. Sign me up.
If you're ready to target bloating at the source and support your microbiome through this transition, it's time to try the formula Dr. Gans developed for his own patients.
For your convenience, you can find Relievance Fiber right on Amazon or visit relievancefiber.com. Feel like yourself again with Relievance.
And now to this episode of the Ivy Unleashed podcast. Welcome back to Ivy Unleashed. Today is a beautiful day. This week is Brooke's Bachelorette week. You're going to be hearing this after that. But Brooke doesn't know what's coming, and it's really exciting. And we have a guest today that I am so pumped about. Brooke is so pumped about because she is a shame-busting psychologist. And I think that is just such a powerful lane to be in. We need more psychologists that talk about shame because we all feel it. It's like the worst feeling ever. And Dr. Shawn Horn is here to walk us through what happens in our bodies and kind of how to work through it and how it's normal. And so Dr. Shawn Horn, welcome to Ivy Unleashed.
Thank you so much for having me.
We love to start every episode with instant impact is what we call it. You know, people can tune in for just a couple minutes or maybe a sneak peek of what they're going to get, what you're going to share. So if you could leave a piece of advice, an instant impact for a listener just right off the bat, I'm curious what comes to mind.
Surprisingly, shame is not what you think. It's not because of your history. It's not because of your how you feel towards yourself. It is a biological, physiological reflex that is wired into our survival brain for our safety. And when we understand the neuroscience of shame, it changes everything, takes the shame out of shame, and helps us move from a shame-bound personal narrative of what's wrong with me to a shame-free nervous system narrative of what is happening inside of me.
Ooh, what is happening inside me? That's powerful. It's curiosity.
Yes.
The shame versus let me learn more. That's kind of what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and you talk about how this is a social thing. Shame is actually a social thing. And I was like, wait, it is? I mean, I know I feel shame when I say something I shouldn't have said, or I'm too harsh with my kids, or I drink too much, or, you know, I mess up in business. You know, I think about these things and I'm like, okay, is it social? Is it just me? Is it my problem? And I really want to get into that because I think that's really interesting. And I know, like, I just think about us from the time we're born until now. We are social creatures trying to get approval from people, trying to read the room, trying to become this person and have this identity that works in society. And I'm so curious about how we kind of unravel who we actually are versus what we've created based on this social perspective. So I want to talk about all of that, like all that we create in our heads. And I know that this is your bread and butter. And so let's get into it.
Thank you. Well, what you're talking about is guilt. And most people get confused between guilt and shame. The thing that's so interesting is that guilt is measured after the age of 5, where shame is measured as early as 15 months of age. And that is because guilt is part of our self-conscious emotion. We have to develop the ability to think, to have developed values. And so we feel guilt when we violate our own personal values. So you're saying, like, when I mess up, when I, don't do this thing that I wanted to do, and I feel bad, right? And most people say I feel shame. But you're feeling guilty because you're violating your standards. But where do we get these standards in the first place, right? And so you're talking about our need to belong and to feel connected in a social situation. I mean, we have to have that for our survival, to be able to have division of labor, to protect ourselves from the enemy, to gather food, build shelter. We must be a member of our village, right? And so deep down in our hard wiring, we know that if I am kicked out of that village, if I'm exiled, I'm not going to survive. And that is the function of shame. Its purpose is to ensure our social connection and also to make sure that we are having appropriate behaviors that fit our group, right?
Okay.
So I can be going about my business, and let's say I'm a little kid and I go in the grocery store and I see some gum and I want it. So I take it. I don't have any shame. I have no guilt about it. I want to chew that gum and I'm gonna chew it, right? And then I take it out, put it in my mouth, and my mom says, Shawn, what have you done? And it's like, immediately I feel that shock, right? And I pull back and I kind of cover myself and I'm alarmed. And she goes, no, we do not steal, right? So it's a very strong message. It's not just don't do it or that's a bad idea. I don't want you to do that. It's a hard stop, right? So I call it like a soul spanking because you're just like, whoa, you feel shocked. And like you see it with your dogs or if you have pets and you walk in the room and they chewed up the trash and you see it and you go, what did you do? And then their tail goes under their belly and they hide underneath the table, right? They didn't have any problem eating that, taking all that trash out. But when they saw your reaction, that's when it gets activated, right? So that is why we say it's a social emotion. We experience shame when we violate somebody else's standard. When we violate someone else's standard. So the gum, I didn't violate my standard. I was fine. But when I learned that I violated my mom's standard, and then let's say she took me to the store and I had to return the gum, and the store owner is going, is angry, right? I get this message loud and clear. This is a value that is in my community. Now, once I agree with that and I say, yeah, that is bad, and I weave it into my personal value system, then when I go to the store and I want to steal some gum and I take it, I feel guilty because now I've adopted that value. Okay. So this is what I call healthy shame. And healthy shame is so important because we develop our consciousness, helps develop our consciousness and help us have, like I said, the appropriate behavior. But let's say I go into that store and my mom says she sold some gum and the store person says, you little thief. You're a thief, I don't want you ever to come in my store again. You are a bad person, right? That's the message. So here, the healthy shame, which was a social correction, has now transitioned into toxic shame, which is identity condemnation. So I've moved from don't do that bad thing to you are a bad thing, right? And now let's say I go through the community and the message has spread and people are now making fun of me and they're pointing at me and saying, she's a little thief. Don't play with her. Don't talk to her. Then if I make agreement with that, oh, yes, I am really bad. Then now it gets woven into my sense of self. And now I believe I'm unworthy, I'm flawed to the core, that when I make a mistake, I didn't just make a mistake, but I am a mistake. Now I have developed a shame-bound identity, which is now, this is who I am. And because now I have that core belief, I will turn to things to soothe that emotion, like excessive behaviors, drugs, alcohol, gambling, whatever. Or I will turn to masks to prove to the world that I am okay, like people pleasing and perfectionism. And I will develop emotions in response to it, like depression and anxiety. And that is why a lot of the shame experts say that shame is at the core of our emotion, of most of, if not all, some will say, our emotional and behavioral struggles. So to kind of map it all out, the healthy shame is a physiological reflex when we get certain information that comes from social correction. When we adopt it, then it turns into guilt. When it becomes a statement of who I am, you're bad. Now it's toxic shame. So most of the time when people are talking about shame, they're talking about toxic shame or, they're talking about guilt. And that's why I try to clarify this message, because I find that so many people get it wrong.
Wow. It's so interesting to me too. And I think about all the people walking around acting the way they act and having the dysfunctional relationship issues, which we all have dysfunction in every relationship, right? There's things we can always work on and get better. But I always think like there's so many things we're probably just unaware of that happened when we were little, which is also frightening as a parent. I have 3 little kids. And well, now I shouldn't say little. They're 13, 11, and 8. Wow. They're like
big kids.
They're like big kids. No, they're not little kids. But it's still like, what I could say, they could internalize as who they are. And something we try and say a lot is too, like, you're not rude. Your comment was rude. And then when you're kind of explaining this, like you're talking about behavior versus who you are, that's kind of what I'm thinking. But I just, a lot of parents didn't have that type of awareness of how to speak in this identity versus feeling versus behavior. So how do we become aware that the patterns in our life now as adults are probably because of something that happened when we were little? And how do we kind of work on undoing that or becoming less dysfunctional in the relationships because of it?
Well, it's so complex. And when I first started talking about this, I was teaching shame-free parenting, because I found that the message that we get as parents is that if you're a good parent, you will have good kids. If you're a bad parent, you will have bad kids. But that is not true. It is so complex. You can do all the right things, and your child can still develop belief systems about themselves that you were committed over a lifetime to not do for them. Like for me with my daughter, I was committed to no body shame. There was no diet talking. There was no weight, issues. Like that was so important to me. However, she still experienced that, and had her own insecurities and anxieties about her physical appearance that was not coming from, this household, where in my story, like I experienced a lot of food policing, a lot of fat shaming. So that affected my sense of self, and, later developed some eating problems and things like that. So, but here my daughter got a different situation, and it's still folded out that way, unfolded. And so we must be careful that we don't take full responsibility for like everything, right? Because kids are influenced by their peers, by teachers, by TV, by society. And some have more sensitivities to certain things than others. So you just don't know how they're going to process a certain situation. And a lot of our processing has everything to do with our neurology. Are we neurotypical? Are we neurodiverse? Because that's going to affect how our nervous system takes in specific information. And now we know from epigenetics that I can be afraid of something today that was related to my great-great-grandmother who, was living in a village that got attacked by killer white bunny rabbits. And now I'm terrified of white bunny rabbits, and I don't even know why, and so I say our brain is a computer, and our experiences are the software that what do you say, that codes the computer, that programs the computer, right? And then you have the next generation computer, and now that has that programming. And then the next one has the programming, it builds, and it keeps evolving into a more complex computer, right? And that's what happens with us, with our parents and our grandparents. So I believe that we now say that generational influences carry on 3 generations. Possibly 4, but for sure 2 and 3. So, my great grandmother had a role into what my brain is doing, kind of thing. And so as parents, this we think is a very encouraging message, but sometimes it's not so great because it can make us feel powerless. We want to feel empowered. We want to feel like if I do that thing, my child will be so great, right? And then when someone goes, no, it may not be anything about you. Well, oh my gosh, right. I can't fix this or whatever. So part of our coping mechanism is to take responsibility for things we're powerless in, so that we can compensate or fix that feeling that our body does not want to have.
I also like while you're saying that, I felt like I could take a deep breath because a lot of times I want to take full accountability for being the best parent I can be. And so it's like you want to put everything into it. And I love you gave that example of the body shaming thing because I am also like that where I'm like, we don't comment on each other's bodies and the world is fixated on this thing. And I can only control what's in my household. And I just think part of you wants to take full accountability, but you don't actually have to because everybody has their own journey and you can't control everything about your child's journey and you shouldn't.
Yeah.
And
one of the problems we're having right now, and this is my soapbox, this is my next TED Talk, right?
Let's hear it.
is that the problem I believe we're having in society right now is this demand and requirement for the outside world to do it right for us to be all right.
Mm-hmm.
You're hurting my feelings. You're offending me. You're not accommodating me or whatever, I mean, there's this is within reason. Like there are things we want to have in society that is just good human rights things to have. And, however, as children, we needed the outside world to do it right. However, as we developed emotional maturity, we learned to become a leader for our own life so that when the world doesn't do it right, I can still remain all right. I can remain grounded. I can assert myself. I can say no. I can leave the room, exit the relationship, quit the job. I have autonomy and freedom and personal agency. But as a child, I did not. And so we needed that as a child. But now as adults, the world is not going to do it right. They are not. Our spouses aren't. Our family members aren't. People are not going to love us right. They're not going to be sensitive. They're going to trigger us. They're going to do all the things, right? And what our job is to find a way to regulate ourselves in the midst of those things. Like given this situation, what is the most effective action to take? Right? So that's what we're learning. And what we now know is that we were so focused on the internal experience of a child and making sure their emotional well-being was supported. And we forgot to help them develop some grit. And we know that grit is really important, that kids that have grit outperform children who don't. And, when my kids now are 29 and 28, and I was a parenting specialist, a child psychologist when I launched my private practice. And my dissertation was on parenting. I was doing all the stuff. I was studying attachment theory, this thing called circle security. I was teaching parenting classes with evidence-based interventions. I was following the recipes and they didn't work. And I'm just like, what the heck? You think strong fathers, strong daughters did that, didn't happen. Like what happened? And so what I remember I had these neighbors that were so militant with their children. Like those children were disciplined. They were like how to do their chores. They didn't care if they were sad. Get out there and do it, where my kids were like, I'm sad, Mom. Let's sit and talk about it, like I'm gonna help you develop your emotional literacy and your regulation and blah, blah, blah. And those kids, like they weren't, I perceived them as not having this great bond with their parents, right? And that would be a problem down the road. They did fantastic. Like those kids launched, they had good work ethic. They had a good relationship with their parents. Mine are fantastic too. But, I didn't expect to see that. And my children have this incredible emotional literacy and a maturity. And yet, they may not, well, they do have a good work ethic, but they might have some things that I think, gosh, I wish if I had established that earlier, it would have been easier for them, kind of thing. So what I discovered was that some people can have good parenting and end up not reflecting that, bad parenting and not reflect that, and end up being amazing. So, but this is what we do know. If people go, well, how do I not shame my kid? Like, I still don't. I understand that there's complex and you have all these influences, but how do I not shame them? And what we have learned is that shame comes from having unrealistic expectations that are not developmentally appropriate. So when you expect a child to be able to think in a way that their brain is not ready to. Like, for example, metacognition is the ability to think about your thinking, right? So when you say, I want you to think about that, I want you to think about what you're doing, right? Well, we can expect that maybe 10 and older. But how many kids that are 3 and 4, you go on a timeout, I want you to think about what you've been doing, right? They're not going to get it. What's wrong? I'm bad. I've heard people talk about potty training their children before they've developed the muscle in the air, their sphincter and their bladder, everything to be able to voluntarily and control that, right? So if you're asking them to do that before they can do that, it's not appropriate. If you expect a child to not be clumsy, they're going to be clumsy. Mm-hmm. If you expect them not to be inconvenienced, they're going to be an inconvenience. They're going to be loud and interrupt and do all this stuff. And so there's a lot of confusion about what it means to be a human child. And parents get shamed by other people. Like, you need to control that child. They need a spanking. That's what they need, or whatever. Mm-hmm. The child may be hungry, right? They might be tired. They didn't get their nap today. So we understand, the shame-free way understands that behavior is a form of communication, and our job is to kind of decode that. And our job is to coach them, mentor them, and getting the skills that they need to learn how to problem solve, to learn how to regulate their feelings and their thoughts, and to understand themselves and the world. And that takes a lot of energy and a lot of effort. And sometimes we're up to it, and sometimes we're not. Sometimes we're going to talk them through it, and other times we're like, just do it or go to your room, right?
Yeah.
And that's okay too, I mean, we're human, and we want to have those appropriate expectations, and teach them and coach them through things. So that's one thing that as parents we could do, is learn about the developing brain, learn about what's realistic and unrealistic. One of the biggest problems I have with all the adults I see now in therapy is they have unrealistic expectations for themselves. You got this single mom that's working, and she's exhausted, and she's got all these kids, and she sees the mom next door, house is clean, lunches are packed, kids are well groomed, they're going to their music classes, they're doing all this stuff, and she can barely keep it together. And she's comparing herself to that. But what she's not considering is that person has an active co-parent. They have resources to where they hire someone to come and clean their house. Yeah. They have parents and family that are helping them through it. There's no comparison, right? I see right now a lot of people comparing themselves to, like, they're launching, young adults launching, and they go, I should be, done with college and have this career, and as if COVID never happened, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I sit there and I go, hello, like, COVID happened. Mm-hmm. You didn't fail to launch in the way that you wanted to because of you or, some personal circumstance. The schools shut down, and you couldn't go to that school, and you couldn't get that apartment because you couldn't go to the work. And so you were staying home. And so, this is something that we still struggle with a lot of times, is what is realistic for me to expect of myself in this situation.
I struggle with this because one side of me is like, where are these expectations coming from? Or is this from social media? Is this unrealistic? Another part of me is like, I hate the word unrealistic. It's like, I can create whatever I want. I could set this standard for myself that maybe to somebody else feels unrealistic, but for me, I'm shooting for the stars, So like, I kind of go back and forth with that, and I struggle with that. But I like that you brought in kids, because I do think it's important to actually know what's the benchmark. Is it appropriate for me to expect my son to stay in his chair at the dinner table when he's 4? Like, why did I expect that? Like, that is so unrealistic. And it's not even where his brain was like, and not to mention, attention and all that can come into it too. But it's like, we need to have, as for children, I totally feel like that, yes, we should know the benchmarks and what's actually appropriate, what we should expect of them as parents. But as adults, I want to talk about how shame comes in when we get a critique. So you're at work and your boss comes down on you and is like, I don't like how you are communicating in these emails. You need to work on this. And you're like, what? I send 50,000 emails a day. Like, oh, I've been doing it wrong this whole time. Or
here's the problem with that. He didn't coach her on how to do it, right? Like, I want you to improve the emails. And here's an example of what I like, you know?
Yeah.
So he didn't do it right? But we've learned that we're not going to rely on that. What the person can then do is say, can you please give me an example of how you would like me to structure the emails?
And that's emotional maturity right there too, is like knowing like, whoa. Okay, are you the benchmark, or what's the benchmark here? I think we're all people trying to do our best. And I think it is being like, what is the expectation here? You know, I think about when you marry into a family and you're like, what's the expectations here? How are we communicating? How often are we getting together? Who's in charge here? You know, I think that's a great way to get communication. And like being a parent is like telling your kids, what are the expectations? Like, how do I know if I'm violating things? But regardless, I still feel like we get that shame feeling. Yes. Like if you mess up, even if you don't know, like how do we work on that feeling that's initial, even if we can figure out what the expectations are, like how do we work through that so that we can use that shame to benefit our life? If you've listened to the podcast for a while, you know I used to be the biggest skeptic about supplements. I thought I can definitely get everything I need from food. But then I started to realize that high quality, clean supplements weren't about replacing a healthy diet. They were about optimizing my health in a way I never thought possible. For instance, I discovered what so many women eventually do. I was deficient in magnesium. Now that it's part of my routine, I'm sleeping better and I feel absolutely amazing. It made me realize that quality matters more than anything.
When it comes to taking supplements, ingredient integrity is a must for us both, and that's why we trust Smidge. Smidge offers a small line of foundational supplements, core nutrients, including 100% whole food vitamins, and digestive support for people who prioritize real food but know even the best diets have gaps. They obsess over ingredient integrity, crafting minimal, clean products with zero additives and rich nutrients meticulously sourced from around the world. We both love Smidge's magnesium, but with my chronic gut health issues, Smidge's digestive support is my tried and true. I use their digestive enzymes every single day before meals, and it has been a game changer in post-meal bloat, fatigue, and overall digestion for me. If you have any digestive issues, their enzymes, including the original and HCl plus enzymes, are a must try.
Smidge just dropped some incredible whole food supplements that we've been loving. First up, their Kakadu Plum. Most vitamin C supplements are just mass-produced synthetic chemicals, but this is the real deal from Australia. It's pure, whole food vitamin C that your body actually knows how to use for glowing skin and a rock-solid immune system.
I'm also obsessed with their Australian emu oil. You won't find this at a typical health store. It's the best source of vitamin K2, MK4, which is a total game changer for women's bone and heart health. While plant-based K2 is hard for your body to process, Smidge's emu oil is already pre-converted, so your body absorbs it instantly.
So, if you want a brand that is truly backed by research, derived from sustainable principles, and only wants to provide you with the freshest, highest quality nutrients, it's Smidge.
Head over to getsmidge.com to check out their magnesium, emu oil, Kakadu Plum, and their fantastic digestive enzymes. And don't forget to use our code GOLDIVY10 at checkout for 10% off.
Are you tired of the endless battle with cravings? Do you dream of managing your appetite without the hassle, the side effects, or the hefty price tag?
Then it's time to meet Dr. Stephanie. She's not just a doctor of pharmacy. She's a certified diabetes educator and a leading hormone expert. She listened to your struggles and formulated a gentle, natural solution, GLP Wonder.
GLP Wonder is a revolutionary supplement designed for an easier path to appetite control and hunger management. How? It works by combining powerful natural ingredients like eriocitrin and green tea extract to naturally support your body's own GLP-1 levels. This signals fullness to your brain, curbs those persistent cravings, and even helps fight insulin spikes, that stubborn, fat-storing hormone.
The result? Reduced hunger, better appetite control, and a more natural way to stay on track with your diet and goals. It's effective, it's safe, and it's affordable. Just one capsule per day for powerful results.
GLP Wonder is now easier than ever to find. Look for Dr. Stephanie's GLP Wonder at Walgreens, CVS, and Walmart. And we are thrilled to announce that you can now find it in Target stores nationwide.
Stop waiting and start winning the fight against cravings today. Find your nearest store, or to learn more and shop the full Dr. Stephanie's collection, visit drstephanies.com. And for a limited time, use code GOLDIVY30 for 30% off all Dr. Stephanie products at drstephanies.com.
And now back to the show.
So I'm going to point out two things, neuroception and shame-bound translation, okay?
All right.
So let's start with the shame-bound translation. In Gottman's couples therapy, which is evidence-based method for therapy, they have this model that they say there's a difference between complaining and criticizing. Complaining is, oh, you said you were going to clean the bathroom, but you didn't do it. I'm so frustrated. Will you please do it? We could be frustrated. We could have all the things going on. And criticizing is, oh, you didn't clean the bathroom, but of course you didn't because you're such a slob. You're so disgusting. You're raising a farm. I don't know didn't anyone ever teach you? And so now we're attacking them, right? If somebody had that throughout their life where they were given that message that you are the problem, then when the person says, oh, I'm so frustrated, you said you were going to clean it up, then we will immediately translate it into a criticism. So instead of hearing it as focus on the problem, the circumstance, the behavior, we take it as a personal insult because our brain rapidly translated. So we're like, oh, so I'm disgusting. I can't ever do anything right. And so that's where we flip it. So a lot of times when we flip something, when someone says, gosh, I think what you said, like they got really upset. It was not sensitive to them. Oh, so I'm just a rude person. Like if you find yourself doing that, it's coming from that inner core belief that something is wrong with me. And so that's one thing. The other, you mentioned social media, and I really want to touch on this because this was my TED Talk and talking about the neuroscience of shame, is that our nervous system is informed on what to do. Do I go relax? Do I go fight and flight? Or do I go shut down by our neuroception? And neuroception is this unconscious security system in our body that is reading the environment 24/7. It's like the anti-malware on your computer. It's always running in the background, right? And it's looking at how are things operating inside the computer. So it looks inside our body. How's everything going inside my body? Do I have pain? Is my heart beating fast? Is my blood pressure high? And based on that information, it will send alerts to your nervous system, telling it what to do. Just like our computer says, we're running out of batteries, plug me in or I'm shutting down, right? So we get that message. It also, the malware is looking, when you go to an internet site, you enter a room on the internet, it says this is safe. If it's safe, it doesn't even say anything. And you can go and have fun exploring wherever you're at on the internet. But if it goes, wait a second, I don't know about this. This might be unsafe. Are you sure you want to go in there? So our neuroception looks outside. When you walk into a room, it's already determined whether you're safe or not. It works 25 times faster than your thinking brain. So before your brain even knows what's going on, it's already made its determination. And then it's looking at how are you interacting, right? So when you're on Zoom, like we are right now, we got green bars. We have good reception. Yellow, some things are not right. Red, we might lose each other here in any moment, right? So our neuroception is looking at our reception between us and another nervous system, our nervous system and their nervous system. And so as it's doing that, it looks at very specific things. It looks at the mask area of your eyes, and it's listening to the tone and prosody of your voice. So think about when you're talking to a baby or your aunt, your pet, and you have that sing song in your voice. Hi, how are you? You have that soft warmth to your voice. Neuroception loves that, This is why every meditation video has the meditation voice, right? And it's so relaxing. So it likes that. But if the voice is screechy or harsh, it goes, I don't like this. Something's wrong here, right? And then as it is looking at the other person, it pays attention to the eyebrows and the smile area of your eyes. So, have you ever heard that term, like with the dog, that the dog's tail tells the tail? Have you ever heard that before? And what that means is that what that tail is doing on the dog will tell you what state they're in. If it is straight up, straight out, it's alert, it's guarded. If it's wagging, it's happy. If it's under its belly, it's scared, right? Well, we have a tail, and it's called our eyebrows. And so the way we wag our eyebrows is when we do the eyebrow pop. You see someone, you hi, and the eyebrow goes up, and good to see you. And the way that our tail goes in between our belly is when we have that up movement in between our eyebrows, like, and we have that alarm, right? And you see the fear in the eyebrows. And then when it's aggressive, we get flat and our eyebrows don't move, right? And so it tells our unconscious nervous system, the ancient part of us, what is happening with that person and whether we're safe with them or not. And so neuroception requires this information to know if we are safe. Well, now I'm sure your listeners or you have seen this situation where when someone's live with their pet, the dog runs to them, they're really happy. But now the owner is away on vacation and says, let me FaceTime, with my dog. And they go FaceTime and they're talking to the dog and the dog's looking to the left and looking to the right. And it's not even acknowledging that the owner's there, as if it can't even hear the owner. Now, this is a perfect example to illustrate that when we have non-animal and human communication on non-human devices, when we have human on non-human devices, the digital platform, the metal of those machines, blocks everything that neuroception requires to know if it's safe. And that is why the dog does not recognize its owner. It blocks everything it requires. Now, if we take this philosophy and apply it to our communication on digital devices with social media, FaceTiming, Zooming, then we will understand that just having this moment is putting our bodies in a fight and flight. The minute now, the shame is our social radar, right? It's saying, am I there with you? Am I not? And it doesn't understand when it sees your people on this in a picture in front of you, and you're not there. It doesn't understand that. Why am I disconnected? Why can't I feel them? So it activates a shame reflex in the person, which is, I want to pull back. I want to curl up. I want to withdraw. I don't want to talk to people. But at the same time, our survival brain goes into detective mode, saying, but I need to know, am I safe or am I not safe? So we get this pull back, pull in, pull back, pull in kind of dynamic. And that is the loop, the shame loop that we get into with social media and when we're Zooming and when we're doing these things that we don't understand. And so our thinking brain, when it doesn't understand something, it tries to interpret it. How is this possible that I feel this awful here? I must be insecure. I must have low self-confidence. I must what's happening here, right? And this is my message to others to take the shame out of shame, is that it doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, how mature you are, whether you're confident, not confident, connected, not connected. We will have a shame reflex when we are on social media. And the solution is that the minute you notice that, the minute you see you're going, oh, not feeling good, wanting to withdraw, not wanting to answer your phone, then that is your signal to turn it off and then go find a person that you feel safe and connected to and just look into their face and say, we need to talk. Just look. And what it's doing is it's giving your neuroception what it's looking for. Oh, I can feel you. I can smell you. I can see your eyebrows. I can hear your voice. And then your nervous system will be able to downregulate. And so it's so important to understand the shame reflex because When somebody looks at us with a scold in their eyes, when their voice is flat, when they have Botox on their eyebrows and their eyebrows are not moving, it's not wagging, we will have shame activation. And we won't understand why. Why do I feel this way? Why am I so uncomfortable? I don't know why I want to suddenly leave. Now, sometimes we must not see all of those feelings as shame activation. Like if you're at a party and you just get a bad vibe and you just want to leave, that's your neuroception that's sounding the alarm, saying something's wrong, you got to go. And we may not ever know why. It could be a smell we picked up, something someone was wearing, something that our neuroception learned were signs that we're not safe.
That's so
This
interesting.
is insane. So like I'm thinking anytime I'm scrolling social media, on a Zoom call, on a video FaceTime, my nervous system is telling me I'm in danger, essentially.
Yep. And this is why I believe we're experiencing chronic anxiety.
Yeah.
As a society. We're seeing anxiety increase and mental health struggles increase with our increase in digital communication.
Now, do you think down the road that will get better? Like the part of our brain that's, a million years old, where the ancestral part that you mentioned, well, eventually decades and generations, like technology is not going anywhere. So is our brain going to adapt? Do you believe that? Or what's your viewpoint on that?
Well, I have believed that. We know it will take 3 generations, right, for the programming to occur. We are better off with telephone calls because our neuroception understands that now. However, we're getting this new information about digital dementia that's happening with frequent screen use that is causing some significant problems with our brain. It's causing problems of memory, attention, concentration. It's lowering IQs. They're saying it's literally going to reshape our brains so we have lower intelligence. And we're seeing digital dementia in as early as 5 years of age. There was a recent Australian 60 Minutes on this. And so the concern is that, yes, we will adapt, but however, our brain is getting impacted. And so the solution to that, we're still trying to figure out. But we really do need to reduce our screen time so that we don't get those dangerous effects. Now, as a person that specializes in neurodiversity, right now people are going, oh, there's such an increase with ADHD, and it's still not an increase. It's like we're seeing more people connecting with education with all sorts of diagnosis. Like when we start talking about trauma, all these people are like, oh my gosh, I have trauma, and so forth. So with education, you do see an increase in people talking about it, right? But what we always say is that when you're dealing with neurodevelopmental conditions, you're born with these conditions, right? So learning differences you're born with, autism you're born with, ADHD you're born with. And the diagnostic criteria is that we see these symptoms before the age of 12, before the age of 10, before the age of 7. We look for these certain markers to see the symptoms are there. It dawned on me the other day, oh my gosh, like this belief system was based on a population that did not have digital devices before those ages, right? I didn't have them. Even my kids didn't have them. They're 30 somethings. But now we have, if they're under 30, they may have been born and straight to the digital device. So now we may not be able to distinguish. This is the question I have as a scientist, is like, how are we going to distinguish an ADHD condition caused by digital exposure or by you're born with it kind of thing? So this is going to present a whole new problem to the field of psychology that we're going to have to try to solve that we're seeing right now. So it's so alarming. I'm telling everyone I love, like, just with all your power and all your might, keep youth away from screens. It messes with our body in more ways than we ever know. And it's not because of your thinking. It's affecting the way the brain is shaping. It's affecting our limbic system, everything. And if we want to be well and we want to be balanced, we must, really limit that.
Yeah. I think, yes, there's the data behind it, but it's also how you feel. Like I remember when you made that rule, Andrea made a rule in her house of no screens before school, and Griffin her son fought back, and then he became in love with it. Like he noticed how he felt. I was on a trip this past weekend where I'm face to face with girls, barely any screen time. And I'm like, oh, like I can breathe, like my nervous system. I don't want to reach for my phone. I don't even want to read a book on my Kindle. Like I literally just sat on the airplane, like looking at people. Like you can tell in your body how good it feels to put the computer, to put the screen away. And I think that, like, for me, that's really all the evidence I need is like, how does my own nervous system react and feel?
How come everything we do is like the harder choice? Like Brooke and I are in the business of helping people work out, which like is not the convenient thing. Get off screens, which is so convenient. Eat healthier, not as convenient. Like we are in the business of like choosing the harder thing, but the harder thing tends to be healthier for you and better for you. And so sometimes I'm like, man, too bad we don't have like a convenience business. Like you'd probably make a lot more money or like be more successful.
Or I mean, therapy is the same way, right? Like going to therapy is not the easy decision. It's doing the hard work.
Yeah, I always say people that come to therapy are the most courageous people I know because they're willing to face shame. They're willing to just open up and look at things. And people that are very shame bound, they're the ones that won't come. I don't need therapy. Nothing's wrong with me. The more you get that kind of mantra, the more there's stuff going on behind the scene. Yeah. But I think what you're saying about the hard thing, we get that mindset that things are really hard. But if we look at it very simplistically, it doesn't have to really be that hard. Like wake up, sit outside, drink your coffee, look at the sun, go for your walk, make your eggs, and just relax and do life, right? And so if we have our go-tos that we've developed, our habits we've developed, it doesn't have to feel like I've got to go to the gym and I have to work out hard. It's like you start to want to do those things, right?
Yeah.
And like, what am I going to make? Well, yes, there's a learning curve with that. What is easy for you to make, healthy, feels good in your body. But once you learn, then you have your go-tos. And it really is not as epic and big as it feels when you look at it. So a lot of times we can feel very overwhelmed when we look at something like, I'm going to do this thing. Oh my gosh, it's so much. And I always say, don't look up, just one step at a time, and just flow with your body. If you need rest, get rest. Sleeping is as important as exercising. And sometimes your body needs to sleep.
Oh yeah.
And going to the gym is just going to stress your body out more. So we have to learn how to get attuned to our body, which can be hard if people have problems with interoception, like feeling the cues of their body. Yeah. And people who have trauma, like 45 to 65% of them have that problem, as well as neurodiverse populations. Like they can't sense their cues correctly. So it's hard for them to know, oh, I'm hungry now. Do the intuitive eating and movement and things like that.
And what you're talking about with turning off the screens is what's going to help you get more in tune with your body.
Totally.
I think the goal is I want to feel good. I want to feel better. And a lot of things, it will be shaking it up. It will be setting the phone aside and not numbing with it. It will be a little bit of effort to get outside. But like you said, like you have to give yourself the opportunities to feel good, to feel better, because you deserve that. And I think there's so many pieces to this puzzle. But what I love that we're talking about is the shame piece of it, because that's what a lot of people don't start. They're so shameful that it's been years of sitting on the couch. It's been years of fast food and not taking the action. And they have shame about their history and their bad behavior towards themselves that makes them be overweight or depressed or whatever. And so what would you say, like, to someone that identifies, okay, I do actually feel pretty bad about myself. I wouldn't admit this to anybody else, but like, I feel guilty or shameful for my past actions. Like, how would you help someone lift that kind of burden and that weight so that they can start to do and take actions to make themselves feel better?
The first part is to know we're part of the human experience, and everybody has something in their past they feel shame about. Everybody, every single person at any given time struggles in one of three areas: finances, relationships, or health, and all three. And there's no exception. So shame tells us we're alone. It's only us. No, no, it is all of us, right? Yeah, but they didn't go through what I did. Yes, many people have. Many people have. If you look at the stats of some of the big things that people think about that are associated with shame, like let's say incest, that if you look at the stats of how prevalent that is, I mean, it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. If at one time they used to say 1 in 3 people have herpes. 1 in 3. I was sitting with 2 of my friends and I told them this, and one of my friends looked and said, "Okay, which one of us has it?" It was like, oh my gosh, and so this is not a unique experience. But shame makes us be silent and hide. So we don't know that. We don't know that other people are struggling. Shame makes us do appearance management, not problem management. So, because people aren't trying, I got a problem, I got to fix it. And they're just, I'm good. It's just, I've got it together. Then we don't see it. And so it gives us this illusion that things aren't the way they are. But we also put heaviness to this stuff, and we need to have an irreverence to it. We need to get our so what's back, like I made some mistake. Okay, so what? That was yesterday. We have today. Does yesterday define you? Are you yesterday? Are you this condition? No, it's way too complex to be that simple. And what's so great is that we are rejuvenated and our brain can get reshaped. They say, what is it? Every 7 years, our body has all new cells, right? We're completely rejuvenated. And so we go to sleep, we wake up, our body's getting restored, and we begin the journey of transforming our brain and our body. And every day is a new day to try again. That's where 12-step programs are one day at a time, right? And so you're not alone. And yesterday was yesterday. And today is today. So let's embrace it and move forward. And part of that realistic expectation too is sometimes when life is so hard, all we can do is survive. There's not room for thriving. To thrive, your brain has to be in the calm parasympathetic state, which we call the ventral vagal complex, which is like total peace. And then I have all the best atmosphere in my brain to learn. But if I'm not there, that part of my brain goes offline and I am in my most survival brain. So I'm not going to be learning. I'm not going to be growing. I'm not going to be making goals, 1 year, 5-year goal. They say that's a sign of trauma, that people who have trauma, you say, well, what is your 5-year plan? And they go, I don't even think about tomorrow. They're so busy surviving, right? But when you're thriving, you're like, okay, things are good. Now I want to grow, right? I want to learn. I want to develop. I want to mature. That's thriving energy. Well, we need to have life be safe for us to do that, right? So what I find a lot of times when people come to therapy is they get hard on themselves for not thriving. And I just think, girl, what are you doing? Like you've been so busy surviving. Like there has been no room or space to allow thriving energy.
Yeah.
And so right now we're addressing the surviving thing, but when that is healed, restored, and things are not in crisis, then we'll look at growing you, right? And if someone goes to, like, let's say they go to a coach and they're like, I want to grow, but their life is so chaotic, they lost their job, their partner left them, they're in a natural disaster, we can't do that, right? We have to settle things and then be able to do that. So that, again, is another area that people don't know how to think about. Am I surviving or am I thriving?
Yeah.
And can I now move over to thriving? Because sometimes we can get stuck in that surviving, like thinking that we have to still be in that space.
Or if it's all you've known and your nervous system, right? Like that's comfortable, even if it's not healthy. Before we dive into our last segments, I'm curious, Dr. Horn, what are some action steps people can take to identify like, okay, I am in the survival mode. What do I need to do to help cross that bridge to get into the thriving mode?
So we want to take inventory. Like our thoughts run rampant, that we don't like take them captive and observe our thinking brain. What thoughts are coming into my mind? What are these feelings that I'm feeling? It's important to know that feelings are not facts and thoughts are not truths. They're information to inform us. But most of the time, we're just letting it take us wherever it goes for a ride, and we just believe whatever it tells us, right? But as we learn how to observe our body and our thoughts, then we can be more intentional about directing it, right? And so we want to look at like my brain is meditating on this problem, and if I don't have this problem, then it jumps to this problem and that problem, where I'm always focused on something going wrong. That we want to stop and say, well, what is going right? My health is good. I have a job. My rent is paid. I am safe. It's not a problem. My brain is in the habit of focusing on a problem. So there will always be something that's stirring. And sometimes that's how we self-medicate, because we are activating the stress hormones to energize our brains so that we can write that paper and make that call, right? So there's that thing going on. But we want to look at, my brain is saying all these things are bad. Well, what is good? And look at and assess that. Is this really a problem? Well, I'm upset my friend treated me this way. Is that really a problem? It's not your preference. You would like it to get better. But you can move on without this thing. If the friend's not going to stay in your life or whatever. So we kind of put things in perspective to help us to stay balanced. Also, you want to look at, am I jumpy? Am I alarmed? With all these things. One of the things that neuroception does is that when we are in a fight and flight state, it expands what it sees to make sure we don't miss anything. But then what it does is it distorts. So a surprise face will look angry. And the volume level, like let's say someone's talking at a volume level of 4 or 5, now it's going to sound like 8 or 9. And that's where people say, why are you yelling at me? And you go, I'm not yelling at you. And you go, yeah, see right there, you're yelling. And you're just like, what? Or they go, why are you looking at me like that? What? I'm sorry about, you're so angry at me. I'm not, I don't know what and you're thinking, what is my face doing? Right? I don't know. And so it can feel very strange when you walk out and you think these people were so mad at me and they didn't like me, and everyone around you is going, I did not see that. They were talking firmly, but they weren't yelling at you. It can feel like life is gaslighting us. And then we can gaslight ourselves because it's hard for us to trust what we feel and think. So it's important to know that when you're in a fight and flight, think about it like you're drunk. I'm drunk right now with anger and fear. And so I'm not going to get in the driver's seat of my life car and try to solve this problem and go somewhere. I'm going to sober up so my thinking brain can come back online, and then I can assess the situation. But we have to wait till we sober up. So if you are jumpy, that's a sign that you're in a fight and flight. If you're experiencing fighting emotions, like, irritability, frustration, anger, you're in a fight and flight. This is called mapping your nervous system. So you can kind of get the clues about where is my nervous system state by looking at what are the feelings I'm feeling, what are the behaviors I'm doing, and what's happening in my body. If I'm constipated and I have diarrhea, I may be in a fight and flight. If I'm not sleeping well, if I'm having a lot of anxious thoughts, if I am wanting to withdraw, so that can tell you like, gosh, I've been here for a long time. Like I'm always irritable. I'm angry. I don't want to be around people. My body's all constipated all the time. Then it's like, oh gosh, I'm here. Well, do I need to be in a fight and flight right now? Is the lion chasing me? Do I have an enemy approaching me? No, I'm actually safe, right? Got my job. I'm not in trouble. My health is good. Then if that is happening, if our nervous system's misfiring and we can't downregulate, then we have to learn the tools to help regulate our nervous system and help it not get unstuck. And that's the somatic interventions or safe sound protocol, which is a polyvagal tool that helps to correct our nervous system flexibility and things. So
Dr. Horn, this has been incredible. My brain is like going a million places in a good way.
Yeah.
Of like, I never thought about how technology does that to our nervous system.
And I love all the examples you just gave, because it's like, if you feel like there's a constant battle and you're constantly reacting and jumping and like, if that's how you feel, and I'd like that you gave some examples, because people are legit living that way and think that that's just how everybody lives, and it's not. Like you're hijacked. And what I love about following you is you in real time will be like, hey, do you ever feel this way? Can I just show you something real quick? Let's breathe together. And you give these examples of like, this is normal. Like a lot of people are feeling this way. Let me help you, because I'm a therapist. I know what I'm doing. And we've got to calm this nervous system. It's so important. And so thank you for giving people tools to do that. And we really want people to be able to follow you, get your book, and have all these tools that you're sharing, because they're so helpful. So can you tell everybody where to find you and follow you?
Yeah, so I am the social media spaces that I'm on is YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and I have my podcast, Inspired Living Podcast, that I'm going to be putting more episodes on. And my book you can buy anywhere where books are sold. It's called Thrive Socially with Adult ADHD. And my reviewers and endorsers said, this book needs to be for everyone, like not just ADHD, but, with the SEO and everything, you want to capture certain groups. But really this, if you want to learn about how to have a shame-free mindset, how to understand the nervous system states, how to map your nervous system states, how to understand what your nervous system does in relationships and social contexts, and how to improve your self-leadership, grow your social and emotional intelligence, this book is for you. And it's got tons of free resources that the publisher, New Harbinger Press, makes available online to accompany the book. It's really like a second book that goes with it. So you can get that anywhere, Amazon, New Harbinger, Target, wherever books are sold. And then come to my website and see my blog and join my community, my email list. And as I grow and put more content out there, you will learn. My passion is not just to tell you the why and the what, but really to give you the what to do, how to do it, how to fix it. I always get so frustrated when I read a book and I'm looking for that solution. And in the last chapter, they go, oh, wow, well, the solution, yeah, there is a solution, but we'll get to it another time, and it's like, no, that's why I picked up this book. And so it's really important to me that we're given those tools and those skills, not just education is intervention. However, we need the tools and skills that we didn't get and we haven't mastered to make our body different. You know that with your health and nutrition stuff. People don't know what's important for exercise. How do I move my body? What do I eat?
And how to integrate it into your day-to-day. Yes, it's the key. So I'm so glad that you provide those tools, and everybody will link everything for Dr. Shawn Horn too. But we always end our show with a few segments. One is 3 gold stars. So top 3 takeaways for people, whether it's things we already talked about or your 3 life hacks in life, whatever you want to share, your 3 gold stars.
I have 3 gold stars for, success comes from moving out of your comfort zone. We are going to be uncomfortable. I was thinking that when you were saying, why do I feel like it's so hard until I feel good? And it made me think of people who stop drinking alcohol. At first it's fuzzy, but then they feel so good, so good. And that is what happens when we move off of digital stuff and we get connected to earth and ground again. Yes. Okay, so first one. All right.
Get uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's okay. We're guiding our feelings. We're not following our feelings. And so it is, our brain is a muscle and we need to exercise it. And just like in the gym, you work out till you can't lift that thing anymore, and it takes you to the next level. So we're reshaping our brain that way. It's so important to know that shame is hardwired in us. We have a shame reflex. Under the right conditions, it will activate and we won't know why. And we may never know why. And you could do all the therapy in the world and not know why, and knowing why is not going to make the change happen in the first place. Like, oh, we all know why we need to exercise, why we don't need to not eat sugar, but we still do it, right? So, so it's important to know what our body is doing. And the more we learn about it, the more we can develop a shame-free understanding of what our brain and our body is doing. And instead of making it like, I'm bad, something's wrong with me. And third, we're part of the human race, and every single person has shame. Every single person. There's micro, macro, there's like every little day shame events that happen. Oh, you're going to wear that. Or, let your kid do that. Like things that we get, like we're violating a standard. That's going to happen. And then we have the big events, that are very hard, that are more what we associate with shame. But shame doesn't have to be associated with that. It could just be you're talking to someone who has Botox and your brain doesn't know why. Are they not popping their eyebrows when they see me? And it's going to say they don't like me. They're mad at me. And then now you're in fight or flight. So now you're seeing all their face as really not liking you, right? Mm-hmm. And so we've got this thing going on that can make us so confused. But as we learn that, as we know, we're all doing this. No one is an exception. It's not people that say, oh, I am so self-confident. Like that is not our goal. Mm-hmm. Our goal is to develop resilience. Our goal is to be able to learn how to down-regulate our nervous system. Our goal is to be able to identify what's happening in our body so we know what tools to access. Mm-hmm. Our goal is to not make that reflex stop. Mm-hmm. It won't. It's not possible, right? Because it's there for your survival. Yeah. Shame is helpful. It's toxic shame that's not. Mm-hmm. And so we're all okay. We're all doing this together, doing the best we can. Yeah. And so we need to have self-compassion and self-grace and learn about what it means to be human.
I love that. Okay, 3 more surprise questions as we wrap up. We call this segment Unleashing Ivy. So first, my question is, if you could have people start doing one thing today to support their mental health, what is your one recommendation, one tool for everyone?
You have to have human-to-human interaction on the daily for your neuroception. Just like you have to drink water, I need to be face-to-face with you in real time to help my nervous system get regulated. And if you don't have people available, have an animal that you do that with, go out in nature, be barefoot on the ground, stand in front of the trees, the water. We have to connect daily with real things and less on non-real things.
I love that. That's such good advice. Can you not stop looking at her eyebrows now? Like I don't know if you've trained these eyebrows, but now I'm like, well, one's up and one's up. And oh no, now they're both up. And like
my eyebrows,
yeah.
my eyebrows have a life of their own. I take no responsibility for them. I don't know heck is going on
I feel
up
like
there.
The dog is wagging its tail at me. I feel like you're very friendly, very warm. It makes me want to talk to you all day. So I like ever since you brought that up, I'm like, what am I doing with I haven't done Botox, but like I probably am not doing a good job with like my eyebrow.
Great mobility in those brows.
What's so interesting is that the cranial nerve that's related to the face and facial muscles is not activated when when we're stressed and when we're in threat. So one of the signs that we are in a stress or trauma is that our face stops moving. We don't move our eyebrows.
Like resting bitch face?
Resting bitch face, yeah. And also your voice gets hoarse and it doesn't have good tone to it. It gets more flat. And so you have someone talking, they're always talking like this when they're talking to you, the same tone every time, right? And if you really listen to it, you think, oh my, they're really not changing. They might change the volume, but they're not changing the tones that they're using, right?
So interesting.
And so one of the things that you see when people are beginning to heal is they have more tone and their face is moving. And in my therapy, I do safe sound protocol, which helps correct the nervous system. And I thought people were like flat-faced people. I just thought that's the way it is. I come from a Mexican-American family. I mean, everyone's face is very expressive, right? So we got like mega eyebrow muscles in my family. And so I just thought that was us. That's just how it works. But then when someone come in for the sound therapy, I go, "Hi, how are you?" And they go, "Oh, I'm good." And their face would light up, their eyebrows would move. And if I could fall off my chair, I would. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I have never seen this face, on you. And so you do see the face moving a lot. So we can tell if we're stressed if we're not moving our face a lot and listening to our voice too.
Yeah. I'm going to be looking at people so differently.
I know. Well, you know what? One of the experts in polyvagal theory of this model, the nervous system, Deb Dana, she says, once you understand this, it changes the way you view the world.
Yeah. I feel like this is going to be so different.
Oh, they're depressed. Oh, they need a hug.
She must be stressed because the way she's looking right now. What has she been through? What kind of trauma has she not worked through with that face?
Well, I think it just gives everyone permission, like, just be nice.
Yeah.
Someone's got a stale face, a resting bitch face. Like, they got some deep things
they've been through some stuff.
Yeah.
They've been through some stuff. Okay.
It's medicine. If you give the eyebrow pop to someone, you just gave their neuroception some medicine.
Oh, I'm going to do that. I'm like, hey, what's up? I'm going to start scaring people.
if I'm like stale this weekend at all on our trip, just give me a few. These guys.
That is going to be the new thing. That is going to be a new thing. Thank you for giving us something to laugh about. Okay. And to help people feel more welcoming and warm around us. Okay. My question has nothing to do with anything we've talked about. From following you, and what you were saying today, you've studied so many things, you've taught so many things, you've learned so much, you've written books, you're doing workshops, and, and it's decades of you putting your heart and soul into helping people with their mental health. I'm just so curious about your journey and kind of where you see it going and what kind of keeps you going with helping people with their mental health.
I say that I'm neurodiverse. I have ADHD, and I only started talking about that maybe 4 years ago. And I say we're unicorns in a donkey world, right? And what I find is that the woman who's an entrepreneur, who has big dreams, big goals, she feels drawn to speak, to write, to do things. And the world finds her, and asks her, will you talk? Will you do this thing? Right. It can feel strange because other people are, oh, I would never do that. Mm-hmm. Here comes the shame, right? Because you wouldn't do it. So that's your standard. And throughout my life, I got this message that I was doing too much, that I had too big of dreams, and I realized I'm not doing too much for me. I'm doing too much for you.
Yes.
This would be too much for you, but not for me. How I had a golden, I don't know why I'm talking about dogs so much.
I love it.
But I have a golden retriever, and that dog wanted to use his brain so bad. We have to put a tennis ball in a Tupperware and let it go at it for hours, right? And, some of us just have this power in us that we want to do things. And then you'll have people say, oh, you're a perfectionist. Well, there's a difference between pursuing excellence and perfectionism. To feeling driven because you just desire it, to I want people to see me this way, right? And so I was thinking the other day, I remember hearing something about meat when I was 7 years old. And I wanted to hold an auditorium at my school and get up there and inform everyone about this meat problem and, and inspire them to not eat these animals, which I just loved animals so much. And what 7-year-old thinks this thing, right? And, but yet the world will take someone like that and make them play small. And, being a leader is a lonely place. It's not every day you get to meet people who also want to do the things that you are interested in doing. And so I say, if somebody is listening who this is you, give yourself permission to reject the advice that goes against your mission. It's so important that we follow our passions and our purpose. And I can't tell you why this is my passion. It just is. I was born this way. My parents have stories about teach me about a butterfly. I'm 4 years old, 3 years old. I said, Mom, look, this woman was all walking hunched over. I said, she's still in her cocoon. You know, I mean, like, who says this, right? But I cared, and people would come to me, and it was just it was what I was born to do in this world, right? But for years, I would hear people say, I've learned more in this hour than I did in 10 years of therapy with other people. And I think, what's going on out there, you know? And I teach because as a neurodiverse person, don't wait for me to figure it out. I'll shame myself to death. Like, I'm not going to figure it out. I need the executive functioning tools. I need the systems. Tell me how to do the thing, right? And so I understood that. And I would teach as well as process the therapy. But there was only one of me. And so I remember thinking in like 2017, I wish that I could put something out there so more people can hear what my clients hear. And that's when I said, I think I'm going to step into this public role and start teaching on a bigger scale. And when I announced it to my colleagues, I said, you know, I think that I've been hindering this for a long time, but I'm meant to do these things and I'm going to do them. And they laughed and said, oh, Shawn, I think your ADHD is talking, you know, or is this manic? You know, like it was pathologized. Like you're either narcissistic, you're manic, or you're ADHD with poor judgment and so forth. And I said, no, I just feel in the core of my being that I need to connect in this way. And within 4 months, I had speaking engagements. I had a column in a magazine. I was on a cover of a magazine. I was on podcasts. I mean, it found me. And that's kind of what happens when you step into your passion and your purpose. The universe will conspire to assist you when you are in that alignment. So all this journey, I haven't really known how it would shape. All I did is said, I'm going to say yes. I raised my hand and I said, I will do this thing now. And I was open and curious to how it would show up. And then here I am, TED Talk, blah, 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 blah. And I'm passionate about what I'm teaching because people need to hear this. It will transform their life, their mind, and give them so much hope that life can be so different than we ever imagined what people told us. Because people don't have the authority to tell us who we are. People told me I couldn't, I wouldn't, and I can't.
And you said, watch me. I'm curious if you could, last question, if you could go back and tell younger Shawn one thing, what age would you choose and what would you tell her?
At 6 years of age, I was given an aptitude test and I drew dot to dot pictures on it. And they took it, didn't look at it, and told my parents that I was the R word, that I had significant cognitive impairments, that I would never be able to do school. And they put me in special ed, and I was there until I went to college on a volleyball scholarship. And I failed all entrance exams, and the school had an intervention program where they taught students how to be students. That's when my education started. And I did not know I was smart. I did not know I was capable. I was told I was dumb. I was told I was all the words that are related to that. I was told by teachers I would never be able to do math, that I will never be able to go to college. And now I'm teaching neuroscience. I'm associated with the medical school in our area. I, do all the things. And it wasn't true. So I would tell that person over and over again, me at 6, that I am not dumb, that actually I'm very intelligent, very capable, and they just didn't know it. And that how people treat me is more about them than it is about me. As children, we didn't have the mental maturity to know that. We look at the world like these giant mirrors saying, who am I? Am I lovable, likable? And we take how people treat us, how they touch us, how they include us or don't include us, as if it's God's word of who we are. Think about this. Like, our belief about who we were was completely shaped by a brain that wasn't developed yet. Why are we still believing that? Why do we still believe in it? The kids told us we weren't capable of kidding. Well, I'm not capable. You had half of a brain. How could you make sense of that?
Yeah.
Right? So, our frontal cortex, which is our thinking brain, doesn't finish developing until we're 24 to, if you're neurodiverse, 28. So we were trying to make sense of the world with a brain that couldn't make sense. Mm-hmm. So our job now is to unglue ourselves to those narratives, to deconstruct those narratives, and be open and curious about who we really are. And so I would tell that 6-year-old, she is perfect. She is lovable. She is likable. She is perfect in every way and perfectly made. And people cannot tell her who she is because what they're telling her is what they think about themselves.
Oh my gosh, Dr. Shawn Horn. This has been such a beautiful episode. I'm so happy that we took this time with you today and you took time with us to I think it's a lot about curiosity of knowing, and you just wrapped it up with a bow of like, don't allow that narrative to be your narrative now because you weren't even fully developed. Like there's so many golden nuggets in this episode, and I just feel like we just scratched the surface of what your brain has on there. So I'm sure you'll be back, and I'm so happy people can follow you and have more grace for themselves, more grace for others, and just know we're continually learning more about how our brains work so that we can eventually get to thriving. So we can understand we probably are a lot of us in fight or flight and have some tools to help with that. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your knowledge. We're so grateful. And how we end every episode is with a piece of gold, a quote, whether it's yours or somebody else's that speaks to you. And would you sign us off with yours?
Oh my gosh. Transform from the person you were programmed to be into the person you were designed to be.
This is Gold Ivy signing off.
Listen to your truth and go chase your gold. We want to thank you and encourage you to celebrate yourself for taking the time to learn and get inspired in your one beautiful life. And if this podcast means something to you, it would mean so much to us if you'd be willing to take 30 seconds to help support our mission to keep bringing you inspiring stories and guests.
First, following the podcast is important because it helps you never miss an episode. To do this, just go to the Ivy Unleashed podcast show page on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And then just tap the plus sign in the upper right-hand corner or click on follow.
While you're there, if you'd be so kind to give us a 5-star rating and review and share your favorite episode with a friend, we'd be so grateful for your support.
We are thrilled you're here and are so happy that you're taking time to prioritize your wellness, self-discovery, and growth with us. Additionally, we want to remind you that this podcast is presented solely for educational and entertainment purposes. We are not licensed therapists, and this podcast is not intended as a substitute for the advice of a physician, professional coach, psychotherapist, or other qualified professionals.